Hey everyone, Aaron here, Fast Forward Race Cars again. Hey, thanks for coming back to the channel. On this video, we're going to show you how to port match this intake to the cylinder heads. I'm going to show you an easy way to do it, the way I've been doing it over the years, and it just works great, and you'll get professional results at the end of the deal. So what I'll do, I'm going to make a video and I'm going to narrate it, and I'm going to tell you the steps I do, and you'll see it's pretty easy, quick way to do it. We use the gasket to do it. That's how we do it for the quick way. And then there's another way we could do it too by scribing. But the way I'm going to show you is with using the gasket for the port match. And we actually already ported the heads on it, so it makes it real nice when we use the gasket matching to match the ports. And then the reason for that is when we port the heads first and we scribe the line, when we port the port, we actually port around and we port past the line. And then when we do the intake, we port up to the line. So when you put the intake on there, there's no step between the two. Basically, the intake is a tiny bit smaller than the port of the head, so it doesn't restrict flow. But anyways, in the video, you'll see through the whole process how I do it, and I'll show you how I actually port it, and I show you the tools that I use to port it. And at the end of the video, there'll be pictures of the tools and then also the finished result of the intake itself, and you'll see it looks damn near perfect. But anyways, follow along. I appreciate you guys chiming in, and you have any questions, leave me some comments below and I will answer any of your questions. And again, man, we'll see you on the next one.
Okay, what we're getting ready to do here is tape down the gasket to the head. Head's already ported, so what we're doing is we're lining up the gasket to the exact port. And this is critical because this is the final alignment here. And so we're going to put the tape on the top of the gasket and on the side of the gasket. And we're not taping on the bottom, and you'll see why here later in the video, but we need to be able to get to that tape once the intake is bolted down. But right now I'm scribing around the gasket, and this is for when we do final assembly. We can line this gasket up, and also too, when we bolt the gasket up, we can see if the gasket moved on us at all. That's why it's critical that we tape it really good on the top and the sides. That's why you see me put more tape on right here. We just keep taping it, and make sure you're marking your scribe around the gasket is good. We use a fine tip Sharpie, which works real good. Now we're just doing the same thing on the other side. Again, put the tape on the top and the sides only. And there I am again, scribe around the outside. I do the inside too, wherever I can. Well, the more scribe you get on there, the better you are for when you do the final alignment on the gasket. So there I'm putting more tape on it, just to ensure that it doesn't move. These are GM 781 heads that we ported in-house. They turned out real good. Okay, so here now what I'm doing is I am coloring in around the port on the intake manifold. And I like using a Sharpie to do this, but you can use a Dykem, layout fluid or whatever you want. But I just find that Sharpie works good for me, and being that it's black, you can see the scribe line real good. So I'm just going around all the ports, coloring them in, and then when we do an actual scribe around the port, you'll see the scribe line a lot better with the contrast with the black Sharpie versus the scribe. Probably would be a little bit quicker if you'd use some Dicam layout fluid, but again, I like using the Sharpie just because it's handy. We have them around the shop; they're everywhere, and again, the contrast looks a lot better when you actually doing the scribe. Now I'm flipping it over, taking some lacquer thinner, cleaning off the surface, and getting it ready for that coloring in again. And this is Edelbrock, a air gap intake we like to use on these builds. It's real good for street engine. Also, too, this engine here that we built here is going in the orange Chevelle, and if you look in our shorts videos, you'll see me doing a burnout in this Chevelle 69 Chevelle. This engine's pretty rowdy, and so if you guys get a chance, go on that shorts video and check that out. Okay, so we're just coloring in, and then after this, we're gonna be setting this intake back on the engine. Okay, so what we're doing here, we're putting the intake back on the engine, and what we're going to do is we're going to bolt it down, and I'm checking for the alignment right now because this is going to be the final position. So I'm looking inside and making sure the port's lined up perfectly, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put some bolts on here. We're going to bolt the intake back down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark around the intake with the Sharpie again on the outside of the intake. And what this is going to do is going to allow us, when we put the intake on for the final time, we're going to know the exact alignment, and also too if the gasket moves on us when we tighten down the intake. Okay, so I'm taking it back off. We just did that just solely just for the mark around the intake. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm putting some Right Stuff RTV sealer just in a few spots on the gaskets. And the reason for this is what we're going to do now is we're going to put the intake back on, and this is going to glue the gasket. Only one side of the gasket is going to be glued to the intake, and the gasket is taped to the cylinder head. And this is exactly why we needed to have the tape to the top of the gasket and to the side so we can get to the tape. So once I bolt this intake down, we're going to let the intake sit for an hour, 2, 3 hours for that RTV or that Right Stuff to set up and dry. And then that gasket will be exactly glued to the bottom of the intake, and that's gonna allow us to scribe it perfectly to where it is on the head. When I put this intake back on, I lined my lines back up. Couldn't really tell in the video, but that was one reason for the lines that we scribed, with the Sharpie on around the intake. So when we put the intake back on, we can line it up exact. Okay, I'm just checking, making sure nothing moved, making sure the ports are aligned. Okay, so this is a few hours later. Our TV's dried by now. Now I'm taking the intake back off. And when I take the intake back off, we're gonna pull that tape off. And that's why we wanted the tape on the top of the gasket on the side. So when we pull that intake off, the gasket now will come with the intake. And that's what we're gonna use to scribe around our port. Okay, so we pulled the intake off, and I was looking to see if the tape was sticking anywhere, and we pulled it off. So right now, the gasket is glued to the bottom of the intake, and we're going to be able to scribe it now with the actual scribe, sharp point scribe. That's what I'm doing right there. And this is why I like using the Sharpie, because it gives you a nice contrast between the scribe and then the black Sharpie color. And now I'm doing the other side. And then after it's scribed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a razor blade, and I'm going to try to get up underneath there and cut that silicone, that RTV, get the gasket off. If you take your time, you can get that gasket off and not have to, just scrape it off, and you can reuse that gasket. But sometimes, if I glue them too good, then I'll just rip it off there and just put it in the gasket. I think on this one I got one side off. And on the other side, I think I just pulled it off and ripped it because I didn't like how it was coming off. But if you look in the video there, I got another set waiting just in case. Now I'm just cleaning off the gasket with a razor blade. And then what I'm going to do after I get the gasket scraped off is I'm going to take that Sharpie again, and I'm going to start coloring in around my scribe. Not my scribed mark, but just around it, just to give me more contrast so I can see that line better. Underneath the gasket. And I think on this one I just pulled it off. But if you take your time, you can reuse those gaskets. Okay, so now I'm just coloring around the scribe mark again just for more contrast. Okay, there you go. The scribe mark. You can see it really good there. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to pour it up to that line, that scribe line. There's a 781 GM heads that we ported in-house. See, they turned out real nice. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to port the actual intake. I only use 2 bits. You see here another little tech trick here. If you notice what I put on there, I put anti-seize on the bit, and that keeps the aluminum from sticking to your bit. That's a good little tech trick there that I like to do. What I do is when I first start porting, I use aluminum bit, like a single cut bit, and I'm just roughing out the port with that bit. What I'll do is I'll rough it out and I'll get close to the line just with the single cut bit, and then what I'll do is I'll switch over to an actual double cut bit, which is actually made for steel or cast iron, but I like using it on aluminum because it doesn't gouge the aluminum and it allows to have a nice finish. It doesn't take a lot of material off, so it allows you to port up to your line without going over the line. Where the other bit's way more aggressive, and you got to be really careful with that other bit. So that's why I switch back and forth. But that's all I use is those 2 bits, and it works out real good. And you use that anti-seize on there on that double cut bit, and it doesn't clog the bit. So what I'm doing is I'll port half a port with the intake upright like that, and then I'll turn the intake upside down and I'll do the other half, and I'll keep going back and forth like that, and I'll blend both sides. And when you do it like that, you can get better view of the port from different angles, and you can see better if you miss an area. When you turn it up, upside down the other way, and then it gives you a better angle to see if you miss an area of the port. If you take your time, you can get really good results. Another thing I want to mention is, if you see, even though the video is sped up a little bit, but I'm constantly moving my bit. You want to keep your bit moving at all times. If you stop with the bit turning, you're going to gouge the port, and you don't want to do that. So the faster that you move your hand back and forth, almost the better. And it's good. It's almost like a heel thing. It just takes some practice to do it, but when you get good at it, you'll see what I'm talking about. You keep moving that bit back and forth, and never stop, and you'll be able to blend the port real good, and it'll leave you a really nice finish. Another thing is, you don't want a smooth finish. That bit also leaves a nice texture to the finish of the port, and that helps with suspending the air fuel mixture when the engine is running. You don't want a smooth port, because the actual air fuel mixture, they say actually will stick to the port, which is pretty proven fact that a little bit rougher port is better for airflow. It takes me about, I would say 15 to 20 minutes per port when I'm porting these intakes. And it takes probably about 4 hours to do it, start to finish. I mean, I've had some it takes up to 8 hours if there's really a lot of material and you're porting a ton of them and that. But 20 minutes per port is usually about what it takes on one of these Zettel Black intakes. And I'll usually do 4 of them, and I'll stop because my hands need to rest from the vibration of the tool and the bit. And then we'll take a little break, and then we'll do the other side of the intake. But it usually takes me about 4 hours on one of these. Notice in the background, I got that that's a top to one of the totes that we have, and what I do, I like putting that up there, and it blocks the aluminum from flying everywhere and makes a huge mess. When you're putting these intakes, it makes a big mess, and when you put up a little barrier like that, it makes it real easy to clean up at the end of the job. I'm not doing it here on this intake, but what I have done in the past is I would put a vacuum cleaner and I would wedge it in the backside where the carburetor would be, and then that would help. That actually helps suck up some of that aluminum and even less mess doing it that way. At the end of the video, you'll see I have a picture of the tools, the actual bits, and then you guys can go and get the exact bits. And these are just regular air die grinders that I got. And I think I got these actually from Harbor Freight. There's some cheaper ones, and we go through these all the time at the shop. I mean, they're basically disposable. I bought some of the expensive ones, and they don't even last either. So I find it's better to just buy the cheaper ones and just throw them away when they break. Believe it or not, this die grinder that I'm using here, I did buy from Harbor Freight, but I believe it's made in America, made in USA. It's the cheap brand, and they're the best ones I've used yet. I got some Ingersoll Rand ones that I've used. I have a few still from over the years, but I would say these last even longer than the Ingersoll Rand. Also, too, what I want to notice that I didn't mention is, see, I got a mask on. And when you do this stuff, make sure you guys wear a mask and safety glasses. You want to be breathing in this aluminum. There, I occasionally I'll put on some more of that anti-seize on the bit. I don't put a lot on because it flings everywhere. You only need a little bit on the bit. Okay, done. A good view of it. And again, in the beginning of the video, I mentioned I poured it just up to the line. There it is, guys. Finished product. Thanks for watching.